Mr. Smile. It was just another night shift at the hospital when I met Timmy. He was a small boy, no older than 8, with big brown eyes and messy blonde hair. He was sitting alone in a hospital room, staring at the wall. "Hey there, kiddo," I said, walking into the room. "What are you doing here?" Timmy turned to look at me, his eyes wide with surprise. "I'm waiting for my parents," he said. I felt a pang of sympathy for the poor kid. I knew what it was like to be alone in a hospital. "Do you want me to tell you a story?" I asked him. Timmy nodded eagerly. "Yes, please." So I sat down on a chair next to his bed and began to tell him a story. It was a silly story about a talking dog, but Timmy seemed to love it. He laughed and smiled, and for a moment, I forgot where I was. When I finished the story, Timmy looked up at me with a big grin on his face. "That was great," he said. I smiled back at him. "Thanks, kiddo. Do you want to hear another one?" Timmy nodded again. "Yes, please." So I told him another story, and another one after that. I didn't even notice the time passing by. It was as if I was in a different world, just me and Timmy and his big brown eyes. But when I turned around, I saw that he was still standing by the door, smiling at me. "Mister, can you tell me another story?" he asked. I told him another story, and then another one. And I realized that this wasn't an ordinary kid. There was something special about him, and I couldn't take my eyes off his smile. "Mister, I'm so happy to be here," he said. "I've never been this happy before." I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled at him and walked out of the room. I went back to my office and tried to work, but I couldn't concentrate. There was something strange about the way I felt. Suddenly, I heard a door open. I turned around and saw Timmy walking out of his room. "Mister, you won't believe it, but I found my home," he said. "I want to show you where I live." I didn't know what to say, so I just followed him. He led me through the hospital corridors, and we ended up in the backyard. There was a small toy house there that I had never seen before. "This is my home," Timmy said. I smiled and patted him on the back. "That's great," I said. That's when I heard rustling in the bushes. I turned around and saw a figure standing in the darkness. "Who's there?" I called out. The figure didn't answer. I decided to get closer to see who it was. As I approached, I could see that it was a man with a smile on his face. "Hi, mister," he said. "My name is Mr. Smile. I'm here to take Timmy away." I felt that something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I looked at Mr. Smile, and his smile seemed to be getting wider and wider. "Who are you?" I asked him. "Let's just say that I'm a friend of Timmy's," he said. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something was not right about this man, about his smile, about the way he was looking at me. "Timmy, come back here," I said. But Timmy just stood there, looking up at Mr. Smile with a smile of his own. "It's okay, mister," Timmy said. "Mr. Smile is taking me home." I didn't know what to do. I felt like I should stop them, but I didn't want to upset Timmy. And there was something about Mr. Smile that made me uneasy. "Are you sure, Timmy?" I asked him. Timmy nodded. "Yes, mister, I want to go with Mr. Smile." I watched as Mr. Smile took Timmy's hand and led him away, disappearing into the darkness. I stood there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. I went back inside and tried to forget about it, but I couldn't. I kept thinking about Timmy and Mr. Smile, wondering where they had gone and what was going to happen to them. The next night, I was working another shift at the hospital when I heard a knock on the door. I opened it to find a woman standing there, tears streaming down her face. "Excuse me, do you work here?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes, I do." "Is everything okay?" "My son, Timmy, he's missing," she said. "I can't find him anywhere." My heart sank. I knew exactly where Timmy was, but I didn't know how to tell his mother. I took her to my office and told her everything that had happened. "I'm sorry, I should have stopped them," I said. The woman looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. What did this Mr. Smile look like? I described him as best I could, but I knew that it wasn't enough. The woman left the hospital, determined to find her son. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. There was no sign of Timmy or Mr. Smile. The police searched everywhere, but they couldn't find any leads. I couldn't stop thinking about Timmy, about the way he had looked at me with his big brown eyes and his infectious smile. And I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened to him. One night, I was walking through the hospital corridors when I heard a noise coming from one of the rooms. I opened the door and saw a figure standing there in the darkness. "Who's there?" I called out. The figure stepped forward, and I could see that it was Mr. Smile. "Hello, mister," he said. "It's good to see you again." I felt a surge of fear run through me. "What do you want?" I asked him. "I just wanted to talk to you," he said. "To tell you that Timmy is doing well." I didn't believe him. "Where is Timmy?" I asked him. Mr. Smile smiled. "He's in a better place now," he said. I felt sick to my stomach. "What have you done to him?" I demanded. But Mr. Smile just laughed. "Don't worry about it, mister," he said. "Timmy is happy now. That's all that matters." I knew that I had to do something. I couldn't let this man get away with what he had done to Timmy. I called the police and told them everything. They came to the hospital and searched for Mr. Smile, but he was nowhere to be found. They said that he had disappeared without a trace. I never forgot about Timmy, about his big brown eyes and his infectious smile. And I never forgot about Mr. Smile, the man who had taken him away. Years went by, and I moved on with my life. But I never forgot about what happened that night. I couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Smile was still out there, waiting for his next victim. And then, one day, I received a letter in the mail. It was a simple, white envelope, with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, with only 2 words written on it: "Thank you." I knew immediately that it was from Mr. Smile. But how had he found me? And what did he want? I tried to put it out of my mind, but I couldn't. I felt like I was being watched, like Mr. Smile was always lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. One night, I was sitting in my living room, watching TV, when I heard a knock on the door. I opened it to find a man standing there, with a smile that stretched from ear to ear. "Hello, mister," he said. "My name is Mr. Smile. I just wanted to thank you for everything you did for Timmy." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. "What do you want?" I asked him. Mr. Smile just smiled wider. "I just wanted to say goodbye," he said. And then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. I never saw him again after that night. But I knew that he was still out there, somewhere, waiting for his next victim. Years went by, and I never forgot about Timmy or Mr. Smile. Every time I saw a child with a big smile, I couldn't help but think of him. And then, one day, I received another letter in the mail. It was from Mr. Smile, and it read, "Hello, Mister, thank you for everything you did for Timmy. I just wanted to let you know that I've found another child who needs my help. Don't worry, I'll take good care of her. And who knows, maybe one day I'll come back to thank you again. Until then, keep smiling." I knew that I had to do something. I couldn't let Mr. Smile continue to hurt innocent children. I called the police and told them everything, but they didn't believe me. They said that Mr. Smile was just a figment of my imagination. But I knew the truth. And I knew that I had to stop him, no matter what it took. So I began to investigate, following every lead and turning over every stone. And finally, after months of searching, I found him. He was living in a small apartment, surrounded by pictures of children with big smiles. I confronted him, and we fought. It was a brutal fight, and I thought that I might not make it out alive. But in the end, I emerged victorious. I turned Mr. Smile over to the police, and he was sentenced to life in prison. And I knew that I had finally put an end to his reign of terror. But even though he was behind bars, I knew that I could never forget what he had done. I would always remember Timmy, and all of the other children who had fallen victim to Mr. Smile's twisted games. And I would always remember the lesson that Timmy had taught me, that even in the darkest of times, a smile can light the way. A smile can light the way.